Hello everyone, this is the second part of Inside the Mind of Hammond. In this video, we're gonna talk about how to make calls, which heroes counter Hammond and why. But in order to do that, we have to first learn about target priority. The most important target is always the lowest health hero. I know this sounds obvious, but how many times have you seen a diva or a monkey fly off with 50 to 100 HP? Too many. After that, we have the supports. They are the most vulnerable. Next priority is dependent on the situation. Sometimes you have to focus and ulting DPS. Other times, an overextended diva is the best target. The point is to always try to focus on the vulnerable or try to save a teammate. So, before talking about the actual calls you have to make, let's talk about some things to avoid. Don't tell someone to change heroes. Don't tell someone they're playing bad. Don't complain about your team's decisions. People who do those things during the match clutter the voice chat. Useful calls can't be heard and people usually leave voice or never join in the first place because of players that act like that. There are three types of calls: target calls, information calls, and strategy calls. I would consider the first two as factual and strategy calls are usually opinions. You want to focus on factual calls for 90% of the match. Target calls happen mostly during teamfights and follow the same rules I mentioned before while talking about target priority. Information calls happen mostly before teamfights and consist of ultimate tracking, enemy positioning, cooldown status. Don't worry about tracking everything. Focus on engaging in a conversation with your team. Ask them, does Farah have ult? Tell them what you know. If you had two teamfights and enemy Ryan hasn't ulted yet, it's sure he's gonna ult in the next fight or at least have the option to. Make sure you make these calls either before a teamfight or during downtime. Calling out an enemy's position is an obvious information call, but as a Hammond you have the privilege of third-person view and incredible mobility. So it's your responsibility to scout always, at the start of games and whenever you can. Cooldown tracking is essential in Hammond. When you see major abilities being used, call it out. Moira no fade, Ana no sleep, etc. Strategy calls should be 10% of your voice chat activity. They always happen during downtime. They consist of hero switches, combos and synergies, and team positioning. As a Hammond, your strategy calls should be about A. When you're gonna stun, for example, stunning in 5, then you call your target as soon as you're in position. B. Positional calls like I'm going left and straight to point, the rest of you go right towards high ground. Push when I reach the point. Hammond can synergize well with a lot of heroes because of his crowd control. Now that we've talked about calls, we're gonna move on with the counters. You control a 600 to 1200 HP hamster with machine guns and huge mobility. You always win 1v1s and at worst manage to evade the enemy. Feeding ult charge isn't effective, but never forget that damage dealt to your shield doesn't give the enemy any ult charge. In 2v1s and 3v1s, you still have a big chance of getting a kill and escaping. Okay, now let's see which characters you should be avoiding. Bastion and Reaper are very effective at gunning you down because of your large hitbox. McCree, Mei, Junkrat, Ana, Brigitte, Roadhog and Orisa are all heroes that have strong crowd control abilities that are very effective versus the mouse. Getting chain CC'd by any combination of those heroes usually resolves to death. Zenyatta's orb is a reasonable threat, although Zenyatta is vulnerable because he has no escape options. Diva has good burst damage with missiles and can save your teammates from your dives with a defense matrix. Lastly, Zarya builds some good charge from your stuns. When the opponents have 3 or more of these heroes, you should change ASAP, taking another tank that you feel comfortable with. When the opponents have 2 of these heroes, it's up to you. You either gonna change or try to play around the bad matchups. Okay guys, that's it for today's video. If you liked this video, leave a like, subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.